he's got a conflict, and so anyway, we're going to talk to him tomorrow probably. So anyway, I talked. Glenn and I worked on the millage, the use of millage money by the Ann Arbor City Council, and that's another story. But now with this youth team, we've got 4 teams in advocacy: youth, older adults, um, justice, and a kind of system tracking team. And then we're actually maybe adding a housing team. One of the members said, "Why don't you have housing?" And that's been one of our major areas. So we may be adding that. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. But and I talked with Glenn about what we're doing with mental health clubs in Oakland County. Shoot Reddy is a student at senior at Country Day, Detroit Country Day, and we've got Ganesh, who is an Ann Arbor public school student, and so ex-student. So we're kind of gearing up to do focus on mental health clubs. So Glenn, over to you on tell us about everything you can about what's the atmosphere for mental health and in general in the Ann Arbor Public Schools. What's it like, and what do you know?
Let me provide a little bit of background for Ganesh, and then he'll know where I'm coming from. I was on the school board for 13 years, from 2002 to 2014, and then came back in 2020 for 1 year, just filling a vacancy. And since then have continued to be an activist in school board elections, millage campaigns, those sorts of things. But I have become much less in touch with people in the administration, with principals, with this sort of thing. So you will find, I'll be happy to say what I think, but I don't feel as well informed as I did back in whatever it was, 2012. I think the atmosphere is of great concern. One of the things that I think will be important for you is that on the home page, there is a link, and you may have looked at this, but I won't worry about repeating things you probably know. It's called "You Are Not Alone Mental Health Support." And you should be aware of the material under that link. I am not completely aware, but if I was going to go to the schools and say, I'm here to help, I would want to know the context for what they're doing already. I have heard that, but I don't know it for a fact, that the state has cut the mental health support for K through 12 public education this year, so that the district has had to lay off people providing this service. If I were you, I would try to find out more about that. I think there was a resolution on this topic at the school board meeting 2 nights ago. So if one looked at that meeting, and you can find it on CTN or later on, there will be minutes of it. You could the resolution may be helpful in knowing what those cuts were. I mention it because if there were cuts, then there would be gaps that the district clearly wanted to fill when it had money and can no longer fill. And maybe your work can help them fill those gaps to some extent. And would you be working in middle and high schools, at least tentatively? Is that the
Yeah.
level?
Mostly we've talked about high schools, Glenn.
Okay. The person who reports to the superintendent, who is in charge of middle and high schools, is Roberta Hayward. That's Heyward. When you have a sense of, or maybe fairly early on, but a could have some sense of what you want to, I would contact Roberta Hayward just to give her a heads up. We're interested in being helpful in the high schools. We want to be sure we have open, honest conversation about what we might do. And it's not that she would be the most important person with regard to approving things or that sort of thing. But when the principals, when you then contact the principals and they contact her, she would be able to say, oh yes, they talked with me, I know what they're trying to do, and that sort of thing.
So that's part of the vetting process of going to schools and talking to people would be speak with Hayward first and then get kind of established.
Yeah, let her know what you're doing. Everyone, of course, feels really busy. There will be a tendency to, I'm quite sure, for people to say, or to think, they probably won't say it, but to think the typical lay volunteers are more trouble than they're worth.
Yeah.
And they get all sorts of volunteer offers for help in the schools of almost virtually any kind, any function you can think of that someone will volunteer. And in many cases, it takes more time from busy administrators to sort of monitor and help get people going in the right direction than there is payoff. But I think that student-run initiatives are really important, and that and so if you can figure out a way to have it be very much a student organization without a lot of time required from teachers and administrators, more something of a green light from them to go ahead and whatever it would be. I think that could be very, very useful.
Yeah,
And I really do think, like most people, that relationships are really important in mental health. And you would be, I'll stop soon and see what you do hope to do, but I would imagine part of it is give, to help facilitate relationships for people who really are missing that in their lives. And it's a real problem for
yeah,
good relationships. Um, and the schools are aware. There are a lot of students who um, both back up. Teachers and administrators pretty much uniformly say that since COVID hit, and it's correlated with other things, of course, wars and our political climate in the US, that mental health of students and staff has deteriorated.
yeah.
Stop and see, get your thoughts on either what you'd like to do or any reactions to that, and see
Yeah,
if this is at all on the right track or whether it's
yeah.
unfortunate for you. I've just gone off on a tangent
No, that's great. Ganesh,
unrelated.
can you take some of the lead on this? And because we're really, this is really focusing on Ganesh and Ashut as the kind of leaders of this initiative, and very much in the same way you're talking about, bottom up, um, student run, student designated stuff. So I want to sort of turn it over to Ganesh.
Great.
Yeah, I think like you said, like the student-run initiatives are definitely going to be more effective. It's just like identifying who those student leaders are going to be now that like I'm in college. I don't really know that many people from my high school right now that would be interested. And along the other things you were saying, definitely like when I was in high school, there was like a string of suicide deaths. There was one at Skyline and I think two at Pioneer. And I think just like the post-vention care that was supposed to be provided, it was just like on the announcements, they'd say, oh, we have a social worker here. You can come in if you want to. But I think that was kind of the extent of it. And it wasn't anything past that. So I think there's definitely a need for this kind of care being provided when the budget for the school system can't do it.
Yep. And what would you envision the clubs doing, or is your vision, I don't want to say that's for them to figure out is the right dynamic, but how would you start?
Yeah, so I think what we've talked about so far is providing like either mental health first aid or gatekeeper training. So kind of training student leaders on how to identify those in crises and what they can do to help those individuals. And then obviously down the line more like awareness campaigns, like putting up posters around the school or like giving presentations, stuff like that.
And so what would you be asked? Let's say you're going into the principal's office at one of the high schools. What would you be asking them for?
Uh, so like to establish a club, is that what you're talking about?
Well, yes, but maybe more specifics that what do you want to do in their school in as a process to establish this club?
Well, I think a good thing to start would definitely be reaching out to the counseling offices at the school and try to get them on board. Um, I think Skyline we had a dean for each grade, and then we had I haven't interacted with the social workers myself, so I'm not sure how many there are. And then there was a nurse too. So I think reaching out to them.
And I wonder, would it make sense um, to see if you could get them to do some sort of announcement on the PA system that if anyone is interested, come to such and such room at whatever time and we'll talk.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there's a Google form to get on the daily announcements, but I think what I envision it being is kind of us having a structure, like a framework to provide the students. And if any student leaders interested themselves, they could like come to us and like we'd help them set up the club, I guess.
Okay,
It's still like student run, but yeah.
right. And I would be fairly, or my suggestion would be to providing some structure to not have too much, because you want the people who come to take ownership of it. But, and it needs to be clear they will be running it rather than this University of Michigan student. That you're a resource rather than well, you might be the key person, but you can't act that way. You might
Yeah.
sort of.
There's a couple of ideas. One is that NAMI National has a NAMI on campus format. And that would allow us to say this is something that's been done elsewhere. A national organization of repute is behind it. Here's how it works. So we're investigating that. The other thing we're investigating is developing a series of presentations. We have one called telling, something the silence. Boy, my mind just skipped.
Ending the silence.
Ending the silence. Thank you. Which is a presentation that's given in assemblies or other places that involves stories by people who are teachers, a family member, and a student, and that sort of opens things up. So there are some things, there are some presentations that we could make, and another one, Shoot has researched well is called. It's from it's a SAMHSA program designated. And now I'm forgetting that too. Hold it. The program. I forget the name of the program. Do you remember, Ganesh? The one with Rabbi Yarden.
No.
It's called. It's something like Talking Points or something. Anyway, it's a national program. So there's some designated things that could be used to introduce topics to people and get them to come to a meeting and explore things. That was kind of having a little bit of structure that way to introduce people to the issues.
And I think it's very worthwhile asking, but I would not assume that the school will give you a platform.
Yeah.
That so many people want to talk with these students. And for very good reasons a lot, but that the school is they want a well-rounded experience for the students, but they also want to keep their eye on this core of academia and the extracurriculars that are more traditional. So I find them I find them initially not too open to those things. Now,
Mhm.
hopefully I'm wrong. I would go back to, I think it's good to ask. I've,
Yeah,
I've
okay,
been told no
yeah,
thousands of times by now and have no regrets. I'm glad I asked. I mean, I wish they would have said yes more often, but um, I do think that the NAMI brand will be very helpful. I would uh, I would note, as you did, this is part of a NAMI initiative. I think NAMI is very respected and that will help a lot. Um,
okay,
and um, there may be ways, and the counselors or um, nurses or people may very well have good suggestions for how to do these presentations in a way that fits into the school's culture. Um, um,
okay, great.
gentlemen,
Any thoughts, Ganesh, about that?
I think another potential idea could be creating more like a student advisory board to kind of think of programming for the district and kind of using the leaders that emerge from that to establish the clubs.
Yeah,
and how would you find the members of that advisory group?
When I was in high school, I remember there was an environmental education advisory board with the Freeman Center. And I
Yeah,
know there's no like specialized group for mental health, but I think we could try to do that with like NAMI's resources. And we just
yeah,
like put out announcements in like the high schools and a lot, I think we had like 30 people sign up, which was pretty good.
yeah. And I think I I don't know, of course, you would know better than I, Ganesh, how these high school cultures work these days. But um, I think a simple um, flyer of some sort, if you could get it into the hands of a lot of people, might you might just find those individuals who really want to participate, or at least who want to explore things. Um, I've had I've had good luck with that over the years. Way back in 1967 or 68 at Michigan State, I put a notice in the daily paper, I forget what it was called, that if anyone is interested in forming a Students for McCarthy group, and this was Eugene McCarthy, please come to room 202 in the student union and we will talk. And I had no idea if anyone would come. And about 5 people came. And by the time things were really rolling, we were sending hundreds of people to other states to go door to door. We hosted Dustin Hoffman as a fundraiser and almost sold out the auditorium. And so things can work from a small group. Um, who are self-identified. They don't always, um, but this issue is so important. I think you might just find that happens. Figure out a way to let let quite a few people know who to contact or where to go if they're interested, and then build from there, and not to be discouraged if it's just one or two people.
Okay. So in other words, if I can summarize, when we go to we need to introduce ourselves to the administration, the principal or the vice principal, make our requests very simple. We just wanted to distribute a flyer to see if there's interest among students for a club. Maybe find some students who are interested in that and then go from there. And even if it's one or two kids, one or two students. Um, and then we can bring in NAMI, the affiliation with NAMI, as a kind of like you said, branding. It's a reliable brand, and so make it simple. Have an outline of a few things that we could do in terms of presentations, and then just go from there. Really build it from the ground up.
And perhaps get into the announcement business in the school if you could, because it can be a quite brief thing that wouldn't take much time. So there's a chance they would say, sure, go ahead. And if there is something in that link on the homepage of the district where they're talking about the mental health that people can provide, you may want to talk with someone who's doing the work in the district to say, we know that peer support, peer feedback, this sort of thing is really important. We want to help provide that. What do you think would be constructive for us to do? And it's not that you have to follow up on what they think, but if you can get those people working on mental health in the district to agree you could be a really important component, everything would be easier from then on.
Yeah. We have had a couple of contacts with the WISD, and there's a group in Chelsea Dexter called 5 Healthy Towns, and they have done this in schools. So and they have these get-togethers once or twice a year. A shoot I think went to one, and another one's going to be in October. So we got the same reaction from the ISD, the Intermediate School District, that you kind of described. They were a little bit chilly, because they already have programs and things they're doing.
Yep.
And if it doesn't exactly fit with them, they're they're kind of closed off. So I was really disappointed that we didn't get a better response from the WISD, because we worked with them before in mental health issues with CMH and other things, but it's to be expected, I guess. Like you said, they're all busy, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think your really strong suit is student teams that do have support from the broader structure, but that this is a chance for the students themselves to build something. And they will learn all sorts of leadership and group dynamic skills and those sorts of things, as well as help people with mental health issues. So
Yeah. Well, we can provide connections to, kind of people who have desires to for career. They're interested in, like Ganesh's, in psychology. It's really no problem would be to shadow somebody in community mental health. It's completely feasible that a student could, for a day, could go around with a psychologist or a psychiatrist or Lisa Gantz or anyone else, people who could give them some insight about what it's like to work. So there's a kind of career path issue that I think would be pretty easy for us to facilitate. And Ganesh, you could do it with the university. You could say, here, let me show you what's going on, and I think that would make things much clearer in student minds about what it is that what's involved. Have you ever done anything like that, Ganesh?
Like with NAMI on campus?
Yeah, or with students. When you were a student, how did you get interested in psychology? And did you have, some kind of contacts, or did you job shadow with somebody, or that kind of thing?
I took AP psychology, but that wasn't exactly clinical psychology related. It was just general
Yeah.
psychology. But then after that, I took a couple classes at WCC that were more like psychology related, like what I wanted to go into, because there
Hmm.
were no resources for that at the time.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, Glenn, thanks. I mean, anything else that comes to mind? People who, do you know any principals or people to contact in schools, or, counselors, vice principals? A lot of stuff is done by vice principals, or other administrative people. You have any ideas about that?
I don't. I would just be doing what you can, which is go to the school directory, look up the principal's name and
Yeah.
number, and also look for assistant principals, the counselors, go to this mental health link on the homepage, find
Yeah.
out who are the leaders there, contact one of them. And then also, Ganesh, if you haven't been out of the schools that long, so think about who you know in the schools who are students, or how you can get to know them. Do you have some friends who have younger siblings, or maybe the friends are still in the school? And oh, and think about going directly to students if you can. Now, at some point, you do need some sort of green light from administration. And I don't mean do that exclusively. It's sort of do all of the above and see what works. You call the principal, you follow up on the mental health professional, you think about what students are there who could give me some ideas on where to start. So kind of an all of the above, and be open to then pursuing whatever is working best. But it's very important. I feel really good you're doing this. It's something that quite literally can make a huge difference in people's lives.
Okay. You know, when we were working in schools at Spectrum, where I used to work, one of the most informed people in the school was the principal's secretary, and often more accessible than the principal, and could sort of say, go to this person or that person. So I don't know if that applies uniformly, but that was a kind of way.
And the group I haven't mentioned, and I feel a little embarrassed, is think about the teachers you had, Ganesh. Are there one or two of those? Like, one of the things I remember is in one of our conferences with Carolyn, and we were talking about my son Lawrence, and she said, and I'm not sure I get the words exactly right, Lawrence marches to a different drummer. She was exactly right. And he still does. It's not a bad drummer. It's a different drummer. And so some teachers who are aware of mental health issues and want to be helpful, have some insights, would be very useful also as guides to what might be worth pursuing. And you can ask your friends too. Is there a teacher, for example, who has made it clear with an announcement, this is a safe place for LGBTQ students? And I just want everyone in the room to know that. Now, it doesn't mean teachers who don't say that don't have a safe space, but it's an indication of someone who is sort of somewhat, their awareness is more in the front of their mind than some other people.
Yeah. Okay, great. So
Yeah, I think
thanks. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so I think it's hard to identify like which teachers are actually interested in the mental health part of things because they don't really teach that. The teachers that I have in mind, I think I was close to the chemistry teacher and the statistics teacher. And I don't think they're really interested in this kind of thing. And on the students' end, right now, the seniors in high school were sophomores when I graduated. So there were 2 grades below me. So I guess it's kind of, I don't know too many people there right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, you've got standing still. You're not that far away, and if you go back to the administrator and say, here I am, I'm an ex-student. I don't know if you remember me. They'll be embarrassed if they don't remember you, and probably say they do, even if they don't. You know, in other words, you've got standing. So which none of the rest of us have. So.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
will learn things.
Go ahead.
Excuse me. You'll learn things, you'll make some mistakes, you'll have some breakthroughs you never dreamed would happen. So it'll be a very interesting, good process. And my feeling, I of course don't know for sure, you will come out of it having learned a lot and feel good about it. That going back to my example, that the students from McCarthy experience probably taught me as much or more than anything else I did at Michigan State. It literally changed my life.
Yeah. I had a similar experience at an institution for delinquent boys in New York State when I was in college in Massachusetts. It was called Berkshire Farm for Boys, and I volunteered there for 2 years and got a senior thesis out of it and a whole career path. I mean, it was not that I learned a tremendous amount and what to not only what to do but what to avoid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
yeah, I
exciting.
agree with you, Glenn,
Yeah.
now that I think about it.
So it's very exciting what you're setting out or what you're in the process of doing, Ganesh, and just wish you the very best. And if I can be helpful at some point, would be happy to try.
Great, thanks. Carolyn, you haven't said anything. Do you want to jump in? You're muted.
Carolyn, you're muted. Carolyn, you're muted.
Thank you. Yes, I came tonight because I was curious as to what Ann Arbor has been doing. Because even though I've only worked with young children, there are a few that I have truly wondered how their life pattern went. And I think this is extremely important for the high school age kids because today, especially with all the social media, many just need someone to listen and to be there for them.
Yep. My son, Lawrence, was expelled from community high, which I think is completely outrageous for a public school to expel someone to a different school. He dropped out actually before the legal age, but the school system was happy to see him go. So no one complained. And he really needed people who cared in his high school age. So Ganesh, when I think of your work, it's not only I know it's important to society, but I have an example very close to me, which shows how important it is. Lawrence is doing fine now, I'm happy to say. It was a rough journey at times, but he's in a good place. I'm in a good place with him. So things can get better. And I know that's what you want to do to help people. And it's really important.
That's a really powerful story. Thanks for sharing with us. And I'm really glad that all of you agree with their mission. And I do want to, I joined a couple months ago. This is Ashut's project, like fully, and he did most of this on his own. So if any credit is due, it's for him.
I'm glad we recorded it. I think you'll find it useful. So, well, thanks, Glenn. We're going to call you back. So
Thank you. Thanks for all you're doing, and good to see you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we got, I think things are gonna heat up a little bit soon too, so. Anyway, we'll get back. Thanks a lot. Ganesh, are you satisfied? Can we shut her down?
Yeah, thank you. This is really helpful.
Okay, great. Okay,
Thank
guys,
you.
Bye
have
now.
have a great weekend.
You too.
Get outside and enjoy the weather. That's my advice.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye. Thanks,
Bye.
thanks, Ganesh.
Thank you.